The film begins with stuntman Colt Seavers discussing how essential people in his industry have been throughout cinema and television history. Colt takes a lot of hits as a stuntman, but it's worth it since he loves camera operator Jody Moreno, who aspires to be a director. Colt's new project involves stunt work for Hollywood star Tom Ryder. Colt gears himself to a harness to film a scene where he takes a large fall, but something goes wrong and Colt falls to the ground, seriously injuring his back. He abandons both the business and Jody. Colt is now a valet driver and hasn't spoken to Jody in 18 months. He is spotted by a former co-worker, who refers to him as the fall guy after what happened, so Colt returns his car aggressively and does donuts in front of him. Gail Meyer, a producer who usually works with Ryder, eventually contacts Colt. She offers Colt the opportunity to be Ryder's stunt double in a new sci-fi epic, Metal Storm, but Colt declines until Gail informs him that Jody is directing the film. Colt arrives on set and reunites with his friend, stunt coordinator Dan Tucker, who informs him that his first major stunt back is a cannon roll, which makes Colt nervous because he fears he will mess it up in front of Jody. The crew proceeds with the cannon roll stunt, sending Colt's car tumbling across a beach before he sticks his thumb out to signal that he is fine. When Jody discovers Colt is the stuntman, she is not pleased to see him after such a long time apart, contradicting Gail's previous claim to Colt that Jody specifically requested him. For his next stunt, he is set on fire and thrown against a wall. Colt and Jody then attempt to dissect the scene while unsubtly discussing their relationship in front of the crew, with the majority appearing to be on Jody's side. Gail meets Colt in his trailer to let him know that Ryder has gone missing after he has gotten into bed with some shady people, and she is tasking Colt with finding him to rescue Jody's film project within the next 48 hours. Colt then returns to his car and reminisces about his time with Jody while listening to Taylor Swift and Tears before Jody arrives, and he has to remain calm. She gets in the car with him and talks about how important the film is for her, and he vows not to derail the production for her. Colt goes to Ryder's place to try and find him but gets attacked by Iggy Starr, Ryder's girlfriend and the lead actress of Metal Storm. After some crashing around, Colt discovers that Iggy uses a prop sword, and he attempts to explain that he is looking for Ryder for the sake of the film. Iggy tells him to go to Ryder's favorite nightclub and seek for his drug dealer. Colt gets inside the club by dressed flashy and meets the drug dealer, Dune. When Colt asks for Ryder, Dune instead offers Colt a drug drink and tries to have his guys deal with him. Colt starts stripping but manages to beat up 3 guys before following Dune outside as he tries to get a cab. Colt stops Dune from escaping by jumping in front of the cab. He informs Colt that he was hired to drug him and takes him to a hotel to see someone named Kevin and to ask for a fruit platter. Colt also sees unicorns in his hallucinations. At the hotel, Colt meets Jody, who tells him that the studio is interfering with her film's love story. Colt then meets Kevin, the concierge, who hands him a fruit platter containing the key to Ryder's hotel room. After several fruitless attempts using the door key, Colt breaks down the door to enter the room. Jody calls him and chats to him about some film ideas while joking around. Colt discovers the body of another stuntman, Henry Herrera. Colt calls Gail, who tells him not to speak with the police, but he does anyway when an officer approaches him because he is illegally parked. When Colt says the body in the tub of ice, they return to Ryder's room to discover the tub empty. Colt still receives a ticket. On the next day of shooting, Dan says that Jody was motivated by whatever she spoke with Colt since she had bigger and more elaborate plans for the project. Colt stands in for Ryder so that deepfake technology can be used to add Ryder's face to the finished video. Jody later invites Colt to karaoke, and he accepts. On his way to karaoke, Colt meets Dom's assistant, Alma Martin, and a trained dog named Jean-Claude, with whom he had previously worked. When he asks Alma about Ryder, she says she last saw him and Henry at a wild party before Gail called her away. Alma got her hands on Ryder's phone since his head of security, Dressler, was hounding her for it. She understands there is something illegal on there and is eager to turn it in, but she tells Colt she wants producer credit for Metal Storm. He says he'll see what he can do right before they're both dazed by Dressler, and then he takes Alma in his truck. Colt gets Jean-Claude and takes a truck to pursue them, all while Jody waits for him at the karaoke club, disappointed that he is not present. Jody then performs against all odds, "Take a Look at Me Now," while Colt fights the goons after he and the dog get to their van. Jean-Claude bites the goons in the balls before moving up front to assist Alma in getting rid of the driver goon. They manage to stop the car, and Colt crashes through the windshield, but he is fine. He then runs with the dog to the karaoke bar, where he meets Dan, who informs him that Jody has long since left. Colt and Dan deliver Ryder's phone to fellow crew member Vendy to hack into, but she requires his password. The men travel to Ryder's place and search through his extensive collection of post-it note reminders until they locate the password written in plain sight. After Venti unlocks the phone, Colt and Dan discover a video showing Ryder, Iggy, and some of his friends with Henry, who makes a joke about Ryder not performing his own stunts. Ryder is seen attempting a trick, but accidentally hits Henry over and kills him. Moments later, Venti calls Dan to inform him that the media is reporting Henry's death and naming Colt as the main suspect. Dressler and his men shortly arrive and open fire on Colt and Dan, who quickly take action. Dressler eventually shoots and destroys Ryder's phone, taking it out of Colt's hands. They fight off more guys, and Colt makes it outside and dives onto Ryder's boat, breaking through the roof. He then finds himself face to face with Ryder before being knocked unconscious. Ryder confesses to killing Henry and arranging for Colt to be the fall guy for the crime, as well as informing him that the entire cover-up was Gail's idea after he went crying to her. Ryder also says that he planned Colt's accident because he believed Colt was taking his thunder. This happens just as Gail goes to meet with Jody to inform her that Colt is the suspect in Henry's death. After Colt states that Dressler destroyed the phone, Ryder has his men douse him in kerosene to set him on fire, but he gets some in his mouth and spits at Dressler when he attempts to light him up. Colt gets on a boat and tries to escape while steering backward. He attempts to call Jody, but Gail deliberately wets her phone before Jody can respond. Colt eventually reaches Jody and attempts to explain himself, but the criminals pursue him and cause his boat to crash and explode, allowing him to jump to safety. Colt is assumed dead and described as a suicide, while the villains employ deepfake technology to place Colt's face on Ryder's body in the video showing Ryder killing Henry. Colt contacts Dan and asks for assistance sneaking back onto set disguised as an alien from the film. Due to the uncertainty, Jody beats him up until he reveals himself. Jody kisses Colt before he can explain himself, but the moment is shattered by Gail's presence. Jody hides Colt and hears Gail talking Colt's alleged death, while also attempting to recreate Jody's big car jump stunt for the film in VFX and focusing on Ryder's dramatic closing monologue. After Gail leaves, Colt and Jody devise a strategy to persuade Ryder to confess to the murder by forcing him to do the car jump himself because he will be wearing a microphone and usually forgets he is being filmed. Thus he is always seen or heard saying whatever he wants unfiltered. The crew prepares for the big scene and shoot Ryder's monologue. Jody encourages Ryder into the car by stating that she requires a close-up of him. Colt reveals himself and starts driving away, forcing Dressler and his goons to pursue him. Jody and Dan keep the thugs away from Colt long enough for him to convince Ryder to admit to killing Henry and claiming Gail planned the frame-up before Colt pulls off the spectacular jump across a canyon, knocking Ryder unconscious. Gail then calls a helicopter to get her and Ryder after she grabs his confession tape. Colt goes flying toward the helicopter and fights both Gail and Ryder until he gets the tape and dives down onto a crash mat placed up by the crew at the appropriate time. Colt and Jody kiss in celebration of their victory. In the end, Metal Storm opens in theaters, with Jason Momoa playing the lead instead of Ryder. The movie is a huge success, and Alma is given producer credit. Colt claims that while the film's heroes received happy endings, he and Jody did as well. The ending scenes show the stunts featured in the film. At the end, the police arrive to capture Ryder and Gail after their helicopter crashes. They are met with by the lead cops, but Ryder flees onto the set to call for rescue. This triggers the pyrotechnics and blows Ryder up, leading Alma to contact Momoa's agent.